You know, getting a child to eat a piece of steamed broccoli is like universally understood to be this massive battle of
Oh,
wills.
absolutely. It is
Yeah.
a classic parental struggle.
Oh, right. You negotiate, you bribe, you pretend the fork is an airplane. And when we think about introducing something like meditation or mindfulness to a kid, a lot of us just, picture that exact same struggle.
Yeah, we really do.
We imagine trying to force a hyperactive 5-year-old to sit cross-legged, perfectly still, staring at a wall while they're, practically vibrating with the need to go run around outside. We just assume it's going to be the broccoli battle, but for the brain.
It's a supernatural assumption to make, honestly.
Right.
We look at the boundless physical energy of a child
Mm.
and wonder how on earth we are supposed to impose this uh, quiet, deeply internal, ancient discipline onto them.
Yeah.
But the material we are unpacking today completely flips that assumption on its head. We are looking at some really fascinating insights from Osman, who is an energy healer and a yoga and meditation teacher. And he argues that our entire framework for teaching children wellness is, well, it's backwards.
Yeah, okay, let's unpack this because the
Yeah.
mission today is to uncover how children actually process mindfulness. And, why traditional, strict parenting like forcing these habits is basically the quickest way to ruin a child's relationship with their own mind.
Exactly.
And we're also going to reveal what this seasoned yoga expert believes is the single most important habit for a child's long-term success. And spoiler alert for you listening, it is not yoga.
No, it is not. But to understand Osman's approach, we really first have to discard the idea that mindfulness is this like advanced skill that a child needs to learn from scratch.
Okay.
He points out that you can actually introduce yoga and meditation to kids as young as 5 or 6 years old, starting with just 2 minutes a day, provided they are actually interested.
Right, if they want to.
Yeah. But the core revelation here, and this is huge, is his assertion that children are actually the best meditators. Like, they are fundamentally better at it than adults.
See, that stopped me in my tracks. Because we usually think of meditation as this, I don't know, pinnacle of self-control that takes monks decades to master.
Oh,
And
totally.
so how is a 5-year-old who, can't even tie their shoes naturally better at it than an adult who uses like 3 different mindfulness apps?
Well, it really comes down to the mechanics of what meditation actually seeks to achieve. The goal of these ancient practices isn't to acquire some new, complex superpower, right?
Right.
The goal is to reach a state of calm, uncomplicated clarity. And children naturally reside in that state because their minds are just innocent.
They don't have the baggage yet.
Exactly. They haven't accumulated the psychological baggage that adults have. So think of the adult mind like a glass of water that someone just dumped a handful of mud into.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, so life, stress, bills, career anxiety, relationship trauma, all of that is the mud. And as adults, we spend our days constantly shaking the glass.
Just keeping it all swirled up.
Right. When an adult sits down to meditate, they are just trying to stop shaking the glass long enough for the mud to settle at the bottom, so the water becomes clear again.
So a child's mind is just, it's a glass of clear water. The mud hasn't even been added yet.
Precisely.
They don't have to wait for the sediment to settle because, well, there is no sediment.
Exactly. They are naturally uncomplicated. What's fascinating here is that the older you get, the less innocent your worldview becomes, and the more stressed out you get.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So adults are spending years of their lives and sometimes thousands of dollars on retreats, desperately trying to get back to the exact state of innocent, uncomplicated relaxation that a 5-year-old effortlessly possesses.
Wow. Which means our job isn't to like install meditation software into a kid's brain. Our job is just to put a lid on the glass so the mud doesn't get in.
That is a great way to put it. We just give them a small 2-minute window to continue being exactly what they naturally are.
Okay, but that leads directly to the core warning in Osman's philosophy, right?
It does.
Because if you recognize that a child's mind is naturally clear, your parental instinct might be to aggressively protect it. You might think, starting tomorrow, you are doing 20 minutes of meditation every single morning before school.
Oh yeah, the classic strict approach.
But he emphatically warns against this.
Yeah.
He says you must never force children into the practice.
Never.
But wait, I have to push back here on behalf of the listeners. Because if I know mindfulness is this incredible protective habit that will serve them for the rest of their lives, shouldn't I push them a little bit to do it?
I hear you.
Like brushing their teeth or looking both ways before crossing the street. Isn't forcing good habits fundamentally what parenting is?
Well, If we connect this to the bigger picture, looking both ways before crossing the street is a physical safety protocol. Brushing teeth is basic hygiene. You can force a physical action. But meditation is an internal state.
Ah, okay.
If you force an internal state, you create a biological paradox. When you force a child to sit still against their will, you actually trigger their sympathetic nervous system, their fight-or-flight response.
So they get stressed out by the relaxation technique.
Exactly. They feel restricted, annoyed, or even punished. Their brain associates the meditation cushion with stress and compliance. You're actively dumping mud into the glass while demanding that the water stay clear.
That makes so much sense. You can't, command someone to relax.
No, you really can't. You are cultivating resentment instead of mindfulness.
Yeah.
Children's minds are highly impressionable, but they're also individuals, with distinct personalities, likes and dislikes.
Right. They are not just miniature versions of their parents.
Exactly. And Osman shares a very humbling personal example of this. As a guy who teaches yoga and meditation for a living, he openly admits that his own youngest daughter absolutely hates the practice.
I found that so fascinating. An expert putting that detail out there.
Yeah, she flat out refuses to do it.
I mean, she knows what he does for a living. She sees his yoga postures, but she prefers modern dancing and a little bit of gymnastics.
Yeah.
And rather than viewing this as a failure of his parenting or a rejection of his life's work, he fully accepts it. He doesn't try to bend her to his will.
Because he understands that her dancing is her way of keeping her water clear.
That's beautiful.
It is. He also warns against forcing regimens in other areas. He specifically calls out parents who force kids to wake up at ungodly hours, like 3 days 0 a.m., to adhere to some strict routine.
Oh, wow. 3 a.m. That's intense.
Right. The strategy here is really an anti-force approach. Your role is not to be a drill sergeant. Your role is to curate an environment and lead by example.
So if a kid sees you peacefully enjoying your 2 minutes of meditation, they might just naturally wander over out of sheer curiosity.
Exactly. The motivation has to generate from within them, autonomously.
Okay, so if we aren't supposed to force yoga or meditation, where do we direct the energy? If we want to set a kid up for success, what is the lever we actually pull?
Yeah, this is the big pivot.
Right, here's where it gets really interesting because Osman completely pivots. A dedicated energy healer and yoga teacher openly declares that the single strongest habit you can introduce to a child, a habit he ranks above his own profession, is reading.
It is a striking admission, but it's grounded in a very solid, observable truth. He really leans on the adage, readers are leaders.
Okay.
Children who develop the habit of reading heavily skew toward the top 5% of successful people in the world.
I mean, I understand the statistics, but let's dig into the why for you listening. Why is reading positioned as this ultimate, supreme habit above mindfulness? If meditation is the ultimate tool for a clear mind, why does a yogi prefer a book?
Well, think about the neurological mechanics of what reading actually requires of a developing brain. When a child watches a screen, it is passive consumption.
Right. The TV does the work.
Exactly. The colors, the sounds, the pacing is all fed directly to them. Their brain doesn't have to work to construct the reality. But reading is an intensely active engagement of that innocent mind.
Because they have to build the world themselves.
Precisely. When a child reads a story, they have to take these abstract black symbols on a white page and actively translate them into a vibrant three-dimensional world in their own mind. They're building the characters, the landscapes, the emotions.
It's essentially a sustained focus exercise.
Exactly. It requires sitting quietly. It requires shutting out external distractions. It builds cognitive endurance, attention span, and empathy. The focused, inward-turning, imaginative state required to read a book perfectly mirrors the neurological benefits of a deep meditation practice.
That is wild. So reading is basically meditation in motion for a child's brain.
That's a perfect way to phrase it.
And he lays out a really specific roadmap for how to cultivate this, which I loved. He says you start in the very young kindergarten ages, and you use the local library, which, by the way, he emphasizes is entirely free.
Such an important detail.
Yeah. You go on a Saturday morning, make it a dedicated routine, and you check out 5 to 10 picture books or nursery rhymes. And the trick is to constantly change them out, right? To keep the novelty high and keep them excited about the ritual.
Yeah, establishing that routine early makes reading an event. It makes it a shared experience rather than a solitary chore. but the strategy has to evolve as they grow.
Right, a teenager doesn't want nursery rhymes.
Exactly. When they hit their teenage years, around 15 or 16, picture books just don't work anymore. This is the stage where he suggests parents need to actively invest money into their kids' highly individualized interests.
So he looked at what his own kids were drawn to. I think he said his eldest daughter loved the Vampire Diaries. His son was obsessed with dragon stories. And when Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings came out, he bought those specific books for them while the excitement was like at its absolute peak.
And there's a profound philosophical point embedded in that action. He suggests that parents should be willing to sacrifice spending money on unhealthy foods or even on their own personal luxuries to afford these books.
Wow. Prioritizing the books over the treats.
Exactly. You are prioritizing the nourishment of the child's mind over temporary comforts.
But, what if a parent just doesn't have the disposable income to drop on hardback fantasy novels?
He gracefully addresses that too. He adds that if you truly cannot afford it, the free local library remains the perfect fallback.
Right.
The core principle isn't about spending money. It's about the investment of resources. Whether that resource is $20 for a dragon book or 2 hours on a Saturday morning at the library, you are signaling to the child that their active imagination is valuable.
I love that. It's easy to buy a stack of books, though. But books alone don't build a well-rounded human.
No, they don't.
Osman talks about creating an entire ecosystem of habits. It's about variety. You can't just have a kid locked in a room reading Vampire Diaries all day long.
Right. Variety provides balance. While reading might be the pinnacle habit for the mind, he strongly advocates for an all-around exposure to physical activities.
He practiced what he preached, too.
He really did. He introduced his older children to golf from a young age, getting them a professional coach and their own clubs. He got them into cycling, jogging, hiking, and even sports shooting.
But he doesn't just push them toward traditional, quote-unquote, respectable outdoor hobbies. He explicitly mentions allowing them their own modern fun.
Yes, video games.
Right. For his kids, that meant PlayStation games. They were popular, so he got them games for their rooms. He didn't demonize their generation's form of entertainment. He integrated it into a larger ecosystem.
By letting them play PlayStation, he's again respecting their autonomy and avoiding the trap of forcing an overly rigid, sanitized lifestyle.
Yeah, that anti-force philosophy again.
Exactly. But all of this, the reading, the golf, the gaming, none of it matters if the biological foundation isn't there.
Right. You can curate the perfect environment, but a physically exhausted brain cannot use any of those tools. Which brings us to sleep.
This raises an important question about our modern society, and this is where his perspective as a holistic practitioner really shines. We tend to think of yoga as just physical postures, but in this ancient system, it incorporates diet, hydration, and crucially, rest.
So sleep is part of the yoga system.
Absolutely. Sleep is positioned as having the absolute highest direct impact on a child's health, wellness, and state of mind.
And he sounds genuinely alarmed by the modern baseline. Like, he notes how surprised and concerned he is that young children today are routinely awake at 11:00 p.m. or 12:00 a.m.
It is concerning.
Right.
And to understand why that is so alarming, we have to look at what sleep actually does. It is not just turning the body off so it can rest.
Yeah.
Deep sleep is an active biological process.
It's doing work.
Yes. It is when the brain clears out metabolic waste. It is when the events and the reading of the day are consolidated into long-term memory. But more importantly, chronic sleep deprivation impairs the prefrontal cortex.
Which is the part of the brain responsible for focus and emotional regulation, right?
Exactly. When a child doesn't sleep, their brain reverts to the amygdala, which is the primitive fight or flight center. A child operating out of their amygdala cannot focus on a book, they cannot regulate their frustration on a golf course, and they certainly cannot access their natural, innocent mindfulness.
So what does this all mean for you listening? I mean, they are essentially walking around with the glass of muddy water constantly being shaken.
Yes.
To combat this, he contrasts the modern midnight drift with how he raised his older kids, relying on an 8:00 p.m. bedtime rule. And he illustrates this by referencing the old nursery rhyme, "Wee Willie Winky."
I love that he brought that up.
Yeah, the rhyme goes, wee Willie Winky runs through the town, upstairs and downstairs in his nightgown, tapping at the window, crying at the lock, "Are all the children in their beds? For now it's 8 o'clock."
It's so charming, but it's a serious reminder that rhyme historically served as a societal clock, a community standard for rest. And he used that standard.
8 o'clock sharp.
By ensuring his kids were in bed by 8:00 p.m. and waking up naturally around 6:00 or 7:00 a.m., He guaranteed them a solid 10 to 11 hours of sleep every single night.
10 to 11 hours. I want you to think about the kids in your own life right now, your own children, your nieces, nephews, the kids you mentor. Are they getting 11 hours of sleep? Or are we like negotiating that biological necessity down to make room for more homework or more sports practice or more screen time?
We really do treat sleep as a luxury that can be compromised. But from a developmental perspective, sleep is the bedrock. You need the 11 hours of sleep to physically rebuild the brain. That rested brain is what fuels the active, sustained engagement required for reading. That reading habit preserves the innocent focus and imaginative power of the mind, which is exactly the state that meditation seeks to achieve. It is a complete closed-loop system.
Wow. We have covered incredible ground today. Let's trace the through line of everything we've explored. We started with the realization that children don't need to be taught mindfulness because they already possess it. Their minds are innocent and uncomplicated.
Right. And from there, we examined why forcing a child into a strict meditation regimen backfires. It triggers resistance and pollutes their natural state. Instead, parents must model the behavior and let curiosity drive the child.
Then we looked at the surprising power of reading, how the active engagement of building a world from words mirrors the cognitive endurance of meditation, making it the ultimate habit for raising leaders.
Absolutely.
And we grounded all of this in a balanced ecosystem, mixing physical activities like golf with modern fun like PlayStation, all built on the non-negotiable foundation of an 8.00 p.m. bedtime to guarantee 10 to 11 hours of brain-building sleep.
The overarching theme here is really a shift from control to cultivation.
Yeah, so whether you are a parent or just someone who interacts with the next generation, the takeaway is clear. You cannot impart wisdom by forcing it down a child's throat.
No.
The most effective approach is to embody that wisdom safely, protect their biological need for rest, and let their natural curiosity take the wheel.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Consider the implications of Osman's very first point.
Okay.
If children are naturally better at meditation because their minds are innocent and unburdened by the complexities of adulthood, perhaps the true goal of an adult's daily practice isn't to learn some complex, esoteric, new spiritual skill.
Wait, really? What is it then?
Maybe the real goal is simply to unlearn all the stress we've accumulated, to stop shaking our own glass and slowly find our way back to the mind of a 5-year-old.
Oh, wow. It turns out getting them to eat the broccoli will always be a struggle, but when it comes to mindfulness, they already have all the answers. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.